Hi, it's Carrie. In this Methods Monday, I'm going to take the search that I did earlier this year. We created it for PubMed, translated it into Embase, Scopus, ran it, and then uploaded it into Rayon. And we're going to take that search and we're going to attempt to write the methods based on the Prisma search extension. So remember that Prisma statement is the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analyses. There's lots of documentation for it here, but there's an extension for reporting your search. Anybody who's writing a systematic review who says they're adhering to Prisma really should be using the Prisma search extension, and that can be found here. So we're going to go to the checklist, which I have open in another window, and we're going to need things like the database name and the platform for each. If we did any multi-database searching, study registries, that would be like ClinicalTrials.gov, the WHO ICTRP. If we did any online resources and browsing, citation searching, contacts of study authors, and any other methods. So we're going to take some creative license here and probably make some things up just because I didn't follow through with contacting study authors, but in theory I would, right? If I were an author on this paper that I'm doing, then yes, I would contact study authors. Just to remind you what we did, we looked at pressure ulcers and patient positioning in the intensive care unit. And I have my numbers here. Let's make some numbers up, although you will not be making numbers up. You will be taking actual numbers. Let's say there were 155 duplicates removed, leaving us with 1,000. Unique results. Okay, easy enough to do. And we got 261 in PubMed, 450 in Embase, 444 in Scopus on May 25th, 2023. I opened up a new document, and here's where we are going to start to write the methods, and I have this up in the other window just to help me out here. But first we'll just start out by describing the search and maybe what we did to get there. So we might say an initial search was conducted in PubMed. Let's make this a little bit bigger. To identify key articles on the research question. Those articles were used to harvest terminology for the formal search. That's just a way of saying, yeah, you looked around first and you used the terminology that you found to create the final search. So then the search contained concepts for pressure ulcer, positioning, and the intensive care unit. Controlled vocabulary, so this refers to things like MESH, medical subject headings, and M-tree, CINAHL headings, controlled vocabulary and keywords, assembled and translated across platforms. Okay, so just a short description here. You might say, just a short description here of how you got there in the first place, and you might even say something like a health sciences librarian contributed to this process, or we consulted with a health sciences librarian, or with the help of a librarian, because that's an important piece here that the reader would like to know. Did you consult an expert in this field, or did you try to do it yourself? Okay, and then we can launch into the details of the search. The searches were applied to PubMed, which is kind of its own platform, but we'll just say NCBI, National Center for Biotechnology Information. You could say NLM, you could say PubMed.gov, whatever. Let's now do this. The searches were applied to PubMed, Embase on the Elsevier platform, and Scopus on the Elsevier platform on May 25th, 2023. The initial searches yielded 1,155 total results. And you might say here PubMed 261, Embase 450, Scopus 444. And that's something you can include in your Prisma flow diagram as well. We want to see those numbers. That's important. Okay, in this case, I did not search trial registries, but do you think this topic might have clinical trials? And the answer is yeah, potentially. So let's theorize, let's pretend that we did search trial registries and we're going to report them. And so we would add them here. We would say which registries we searched. And in the methods, we would say a simplified search because they don't usually take complex searches. A simplified search was applied to ClinicalTrials.gov and the WHO ICTRP, that's the International Clinical Trials Registry platform, on May 25th, 2023. Results were results from all formal searches, and I'm saying formal searches because these aren't hand searches, and we'll explain that in a minute. Results from all formal searches were uploaded into EndNote, and duplicates were removed. How were duplicates removed? Based on the title, date, author, and volume fields. That's one way you can remove duplicates in EndNote. There's other ways to remove duplicates in EndNote, but let's just say that's what we did. Okay, after duplicates were removed, there were, let's say, 1,000 plus what we potentially would have gotten in a clinical trials registry. There were 1,107 unique results for title and abstract screening. So that's your first phase of screening. Okay, so we got some of the big details here. We talked about the databases and platforms that we used, the concepts of the search. But let's go back now to the Prisma search extension and see what we need to add. We need to note if the search was peer reviewed. That's item number 14. So let's say I sent this to, or I uploaded it on the the Pressworks forum, PB forum, which is where librarians can peer review each other's search strategies using the press criteria. So I can say the search was peer reviewed by another health sciences librarian using the press criteria. And we'll cite the press. So we'll just put a note here that we need to cite it. And if you don't know what that is, it's the press guideline search. That should be enough to get you there. Peer review of electronic search strategies by McGowan et al. In 2016. And I'll put some of these links in the video description below. So we named our databases and the platform. That's number 1, done. We didn't do multi-database searching, so we don't need to say anything about it. That would be if you used EBSCO or Ovid to search more than one database at a time. We potentially searched study registries, so we listed those. We didn't talk about these parts yet, numbers 4, 5, and 6. So we'll talk about those. What else? We need to talk about filters, limits. We need to include the search strategies. We didn't base it on prior work. We did not do any updates. We did include the date, May 25th. We talked about the number of records, and we talked about our deduplication process. So let's go back to this, and we'll put it right here. No limits for language or date were applied. Now, if you do use language or date limits, you really need to say why. So if you limit to English, it's because you did not have the capacity to translate articles in other languages. Remember that articles are often going to have an English language abstract. Are they worth including in your search? In my humble opinion, yes. And then if you need to try to translate them, you can pursue that later, right? Cross that bridge when you come to it. And if you use the date, so we're talking about here the topic pressure injuries positioning in the ICU. If we limit it to the last 5 years, then why? Did the research change in the last 5 years? Was there a new technology introduced in the last 5 years? Was this based on prior work that maybe was published 5 years ago? So this is kind of an update of that work. Then we would need to say why. You can't just say that you limited by date and peer-reviewed and articles and language, and the assumption is you just wanted less work to do, right? This is a systematic review, and you are supposed to review the evidence systematically. So it's not like, well, we didn't want to review 1,000 articles, so we just limited, so we'd only have to review 50 articles. Is not an appropriate rationale. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. So it's not based on any prior work. We'll just say it's not based on any prior work. So we don't need to mention that. We didn't do an update, so we don't need to mention that. So we're going to say here, the full search strategies for the formalized searches are documented in supplemental file number 1 or whatever, the appendix, the supplemental file. Is this necessary? Yes, you are obligated to include your reproducible search strategies for every database you searched in your appendix. And if journal editors aren't doing this, well, then they are misinformed and miseducated. Okay, and then finally we're going to say, you talk more about full text screening, how you full text screened, 1 reviewer, 2 reviewer. 2 reviewers should be doing the screening, remember. And then you'll say, forward and backward citation searching was conducted for the included articles. You can say that in the methods. You can say that after you talk about full text screening. You could just say that and then talk about full text screening later. So maybe we talk about screening down here, and this is the search methods. All right, so let's read it through and see if we've gotten everything we need. An initial search was conducted in PubMed to identify key articles on the research question. Those articles were used to harvest terminology for the formal search, meaning the actual searches that are forming the basis of this review. The search contained concepts for, and here's our concepts, we could even number them. 1, pressure ulcer. 2, positioning. And 3, the intensive care unit. Good. Controlled vocabulary and keywords were assembled and translated across platforms. We can say controlled vocabulary as appropriate to each database, because not every database has controlled vocabulary, and those that do aren't the same. A health sciences librarian contributed to this process. You might name them. Me. The search was peer-reviewed by another health sciences librarian. Here we might say who they were. We're going to acknowledge them, right? They get an acknowledgement because they contributed. We'll acknowledge them. Using the press criteria, we'll cite the press criteria, which was the article McGowan et al. 2015? I think it's or 2016. Anyway, please check. The searches were applied to PubMed on the NCBI platform, Embase on the Elsevier platform, and Scopus on the Elsevier platform on May 25th, 2023. Now here I just want to note that most guidance asks you to search PubMed, which includes Medline, or Medline on another platform, Embase, and then the Cochrane library, which includes Cochrane systematic reviews and Central. But I don't have access to Cochrane, not easily, so I didn't search Cochrane, but hopefully you would be searching Cochrane. On May 25th, 2023, no limits for language or date were applied, and if they were, we would need to say why. The initial searches yielded 1,155 total results. Here we gave the results by database. That fulfills the criteria for the Prisma search extension. A simplified search was applied to ClinicalTrials.gov and the WHO ICTRP on May 25th, 2023. The full search strategies for the formalized searches are documented in supplemental file 1. This might be linked. Results from all the formal searches were uploaded into EndNote, and duplicates were removed based on the title, date, author, and volume fields. After duplicates were removed, there were 1,107 unique results for title abstract screening, or we could say to proceed to title abstract screening. Forward and backward citation searching was conducted for the included articles. We also need to talk about contacts here. Study authors were contacted for additional data and clarification of the methods for included articles. And we also need to talk about any other methods. Finally, hand searching was applied to, finally, the authors conducted simplified searches on Google and on, maybe you'll name your society or your organization or the journal that relates most to your topic. So I'm just going to say fill in the blank for additional gray literature. Some people spell it gray with the E. I don't think either one is wrong. So if you did some Google searches or you looked on your society page, you might just include those keywords, like using the keywords or see the appendix. Okay, I'm getting in the weeds now, but we have fulfilled these criteria of the Prisma search extension. So I'll put this in the video description so that you have it to review. But if we compare it now to the Prisma search extension, did we hit most of these things? Here is a good description of what else you would be searching. Websites, print conference proceedings, table of contents. Forward and backward citation searching. You can do that with Scopus. You can do that with a tool called Citation Chaser. I have a video on that, so I'll link that in the video description. The full search strategies would be included in the appendix. We talked about the limits. Any filters? None. Prior work? Nope. We didn't do an update. We included the date. We had a peer review. Gave the total records. We talked about deduplication. So, and then in closing, I realize this isn't perfect. I've done it quickly while I'm recording myself. So you'd go back and proofread this and maybe simplify it, make it a little bit easier to read. But we've got the basics there, we've got the bones, and this is pretty much how you should approach writing your search methods for a systematic or scoping review while you're also looking at the Prisma search extension. So I hope this helped you a little bit. No, it's not easy. Yes, it takes practice. Can you do it? I have full confidence that you can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.